And tomorrow marks 10 years since the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. 20 first graders and 6 educators were killed. Most of those kids would have been 16, 17 years old this year. Now, back then, Barack Obama was president, and former White House photographer Pete Souza captured the moment when Obama found out about the Sandy Hook shooting. A short time later, Obama seemed to struggle to find the words about what happened. Take a listen.
The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own. Among the fallen were also teachers, men and women who devoted their lives to helping our children fulfill their dreams. So our hearts are broken today.
And with me now is Eric Schwartz. His mother-in-law, Mary Jo Sherlach, was a school psychologist at Sandy Hook. She was killed that day. Eric helped create Mary's Fund, a charity dedicated to supporting mental health programs for children. Eric, thank you so very much for being with us on this difficult day. What do you want people to remember and take away? Yeah, no problem. And I'm sorry to play that. We were struggling to figure out what to. We don't want to really live in those images. Sure. But that was just a moment that so many of us remembered, and it just brings you back to that tragedy. And I've got to ask, what is it that you want us to think about when we think back on Sandy Hook? What are you hoping that people take away from that tragedy?
Well, I think the thing about that clip is it was, reminiscent of a lot of the conversations my wife, father-in-law, so many in the family had, and that there was a lot of silence in between the conversations because everybody wanted to reach out, everybody wanted to help. But it's hard to find words because it's not a situation anybody was prepared for. So there was a lot of silence, a lot of what can we do? And 10 years later, I think we're still searching for a lot of those answers, unfortunately. But what we want people to take away is the memories of Mary, the memories of the other educators, and particularly the children. That's why, as difficult it is on these anniversaries, we want to take the time to learn as much as we can about those who lost their lives, learn what their families are doing, to honor those loved ones, because that's what we have left is the memory and what we can do to make sure that other people know that the legacy of those who were killed that day will live on.
And Eric, I know last month there was a memorial to the victims that opened up near this school. Have you been by there? Well, what does a memorial like that mean to your family?
We have not. My wife Maura and I live in southern New Jersey. We have not made that trip yet. But some friends of ours, through Mary's Fund, which I'm sure we'll speak about, we've partnered with an organization, Tri-State Canine Response Team, that has therapy dogs, and they sent 5 teams up there today. They're up there today. They're up there tomorrow. There to support at the memorial, at the schools with the teachers who will still be there even when the students aren't tomorrow. So that way we will have a presence there through them. When the time's right and when my wife wants to go up, we will certainly make that trip. But we're certainly happy, like all the families, that the school was, in fact, demolished shortly after, and that they took the time to build something nice in the memory.
And Eric, you just mentioned Mary's Fund. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How can people get involved?
Sure. Well, right after 12/14 happened, like I said earlier, everybody wanted to help. They wanted to do something, but they didn't exactly know how. So we found out that donations started rolling in from not only across the country, but across the world. And we knew we wanted to do something with whatever came our way. So my wife, her sister, my father-in-law, other family members, they took the time to create Mary's Fund, obviously named after Mary Sherlach, my mother-in-law. And it was a charity set up in Fairfield, Connecticut, to help continue her work. And that's the tagline, continue her work, because she was the school psychologist. She cared so deeply for the kids in that school. So we created an organization that would support mental health and mental health programming in that area. A couple of years after that, my wife and I wanted to do something similar in southern New Jersey. So we created a branch here, and we started it with $10,000 that had come in, and happily I can say we've distributed $350,000 to date to mental health agencies in our area. So that's on top of everything we've been able to do up in Connecticut. So it's important for us when we look at Mary's Fund to really be able to continue her work, continue her legacy. We have two children. My wife and I, we have 6-year-old Mackenzie and 3-year-old Olivia. And, you know, one of the painful things to think about, my father-in-law, Bill, will mention when Mary had 2 dates of when she was going to retire. One was a physical date, and the second was whenever her first grandchild was born. And this horrible act prevented her from ever getting to see any of her grandchildren. So for us, being able to do Mary's Fund, even though, you know, she never physically got to know her grandkids are going to get to know her through this foundation, through the acts we do. And I think that's what helps kind of get our family through it. I'm sure there's similar stories for other families, is you try to just do whatever you can to bring some positives. We've met a lot of great organizations, a lot of great people. And that's what we try to pull through, is that there are still a lot of good people out there, even as we continue to fall short in so many areas to protect our kids 10 years later.
Eric, it's so unfortunate that her legacy and her work is still needed today, but we can't thank you enough for what you guys are doing. Eric, thanks so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.